Okay, good evening, and thank you for joining us for our next Parent Education Evening. I'm Shira Berkowitz, Director of School Programs and Teen Therapist in Madrigas Midwest. In our community schools, they were able to continue the Steps to Healthy Living classes via Zoom or phone recordings. The students recently focused on closure and transitions right before the end of the school year. We, the parents, are also trying to have some sense of closure on the school year. Being cooped up in our house the last few months and transitioning into the summer and being out more. Yet there's still so much that's unknown, and our children are still home so much more than we're accustomed to. To help us with this adjustment, we've asked Elisheva Vladimirsky to speak for us this evening on outer order, inner peace, how order on the outside keeps us calm on the inside. Elisheva Vladimirsky, LCSW, is both a social worker in private practice as well as a professional organizer and time management consultant. She primarily works with busy moms to declutter their space and their headspace. Since outer order leads to inner calm, it has been her mission to transform the home with helping women let go of their emotional and physical clutter to create more time, space, and calm in their lives. Her company, Let It Go Consulting, is helping women in both Chicago and all over the world via virtual coaching. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's been an incredible challenge for me these past few months as a parent, homemaker, and a professional. Having all of my children at home has been really beautiful and rewarding in many ways, but not having a babysitter or cleaning help has been insane, to be honest. I'm very much looking forward to Elisheva's wise words on this topic. After Elisheva's presentation, we will be taking anonymous questions from the participants. Please use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen to submit questions, as we will not be taking questions live. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Elisheva.
Thank you. It is my honor to be here and to support the organization that is supporting the community in such a big way. I want to start out by just thanking Madrigas for all the programs that they do, including the program lineup that they've created. I've heard a lot of the previous talks before, and I was blown away by how much practical, down-to-earth, useful information there was. And if you guys didn't hear the previous talks, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to those. And I obviously have big shoes to fill tonight. So the talk title for tonight is Outer Order, Inner Calm, Inner Peace, and how order on the outside keeps us calm on the inside. A little bit about me. I've always loved organizing. I always wanted to be a therapist. And somewhere along my mental health training journey, I discovered that it's possible to do both. I realized what an important role space plays into our mental health. And it is my mission to transform as many homes as possible with the tools that I have available. So my goal for tonight first is to explain the connection between our mental state and our space and why it's important to focus on it. Then I want to discuss some practical space organizing tips. And then after that, I'd like to move on to time management. As part of my private practice, I work with lots of moms to help them figure out a way to make their home function better. And I want to share some of these tips and tricks with you tonight. Creating organized functional space takes some initial time investment, and I kind of want to create some more time for you by giving you some tips on that. My goal here is to give you actionable things that you can implement immediately. And lastly, I want to discuss a little bit about the impact our phones have on our time. And so I know it's a lot for one talk, and I know me personally, if I don't take notes, if I hear a nice idea, it's great. But if I don't write it down, the chances of me implementing it are very slim. So if you want to take any notes, that'd be great. If not, that's great also. So I want to first start with why that our spaces are important. We've all seen the signs in people's homes that say, "Excuse my mess, the children are making memories." And that is for sure true. You shouldn't be afraid of messes and getting dirty and having fun. But sometimes I feel like the moms almost use this as their mantra, and they're concerned that if they're too organized, they will stifle the children. And I'm here to tell you that it's not an oxymoron, that it's possible to be an organized mom and still be nurturing and fun. And I want to tell you continue to explain this by telling you a story that is somewhat famous and very cool. I read it in a book by Rav Matisyahu Salomon with Hearts Full of Joy, which is a parenting book that I really like and recommend. So the story goes like this. Rav Matisyahu Salomon heard the story directly from Rav Dessler, which is actually very cool. When Rav Dessler was in the Slobodka Yeshiva, his father, Rav Reuven Dov Dessler, who was one of the greatest Balei Musar, traveled a long way from Kelm to check on his son in Slobodka. After a very long journey, he sat down with the Rosh Yeshiva and they spoke in learning. And then after a while, the Rosh Yeshiva said, I'm sure you want to see your son and how he's doing. Let me take you to see him. And Rav Dov Dessler said, I know he's learning, so I don't want to interrupt him. Take me to his dorm room instead. They walk into the dorm room. Rav Dov Dessler opens his cupboard, like his cabinet, and he sees that all the things inside are neat and orderly. And he turns to the Rosh Yeshiva and says, I've seen enough. I know my son is doing well here. And he turned around and traveled a long way back home. So it's a very extreme story, but that's the story. And Rav Dessler apparently heard the story many years later from his father. So it is extreme, but I have a few takeaways. An orderly space is a sign that things are in order internally as well. The impact of order extends far beyond space organization. When there's Seder, everything's neat in its place. It has a tremendous impact on your Menuchas HaNefesh. And we know this from both your experience probably and research. Outward order in a person's life leads to the inner order of his own self. And it also creates this atmosphere of serenity in the home. Of course, it needs to be done sensibly and gently. Like, emphasis on order shouldn't come at the expense of stress, because that'll cause more harm than good, that's for sure. But if it's done in the smart way, then it just increases the peace in the home. But it goes even further than that. Physical organization is not just a sign that things are okay inside. Actually, organizing your space can work backwards and transform what's inside. It can make you feel better about yourself, kind of like if you are very angry at somebody, but you make yourself speak in a calm tone, you actually calm yourself down. Or if you're not in a great mood, but you paste a smile and you try to be positive, your positive actions and movement actually shifts your mood. The same thing with space. Actually, organizing our outer space will affect us inside. So having your space organized will actually cause you to be in a better mood, be a better mom, be a better parent, better spouse, and just accomplish more in your day. And from research and our experience, I'm sure we all know that clutter causes irritability, anxiety, and just an increase in stress. So for these reasons, I work with my clients when we're working on the mental piece, we work on their environment as well. Now, I do have to say there is a subset of the population that are called what they call clutter blind. And where clutter does not affect them, does not cause them stress. And in fact, they need to have a little bit of clutter to kind of have their creative juices flowing. Like if you've ever seen pictures of Albert Einstein's office, it's a mess. So some people actually do need that, and some people are not bothered by clutter. But if you're the mom, and that is the case with you, chances are the other people in the household are not the same way, since it's a very small percentage of the population that's in this boat. So it's still kedai, it's still worth it to work on it for all the other members of your household. It's an avoda, and it's a big kindness that you can do for them. So I don't also want people to hear this and get discouraged, because creating this kind of environment is hard work. And the other thing I want to be clear about is that your goal is not like a perfect looking house where things are not out and used. Normal houses are not like that, especially now without cleaning help or babysitting help potentially. But what I mean by organization is that things in theory have places. So when you are ready to clean an area up, like before Shabbos or before guests, or just when you need it for your emotions, that it's possible that you're not just shoving stuff, but things have places. That's the goal. And so, yeah, like the example that I always give, like whenever we're trying to sell our condo, and the realtor would call me and say, somebody's coming over to look at your condo in 30 minutes, that I can, like, in 30 minutes, potentially put my house more or less together. So that's your goal. And the other important thing about organization is that kids love structure and crave structure, so it's great for them. And even when kids test the rules, they're a lot of times testing them not because they want to not follow them, but because they want to make sure they're still there. A great example that I always give is if you're getting on a roller coaster. I hate roller coasters, so I would never get on a roller coaster if I could help it. But if you're getting on a roller coaster and they harness and buckle you in, you try and test for buckle. But you're not testing it because you want it to open. You're testing it to make sure it's still in place to protect you. So if your teens are testing your boundaries, or any kids really, and just know that they're just making sure the boundaries are there because they deep down want the boundaries there to feel safe. So based on knowing all the good things about organization, we want our kids to be organized. But we can never expect our kids to be organized if we aren't. We can't expect our kids to do more in any area, really, in Ruknias or in Gashmias. They're watching you, and if you send them to clean their room, but the whole house is not like that, not only will they feel like it may be hypocritical, but they won't even know where to start on how to do that. One last point about the importance of having an organized space. When the whole world feels upside down and out of control, there's something so therapeutic about fixing our own environment. Our world just feels crazy right now in every way, and we can't control most of it, but we can control our environment, we can control our Dalit Amos, and that is tremendously therapeutic, especially during this time. And so I want to move into some practical tips. A lot of times when I work together with clients and we come across some things and people say, I don't really use this, but I want to keep it just in case. So guess what? This pandemic has been the just in case. If you didn't use this something during the last, 3.5 months of quarantine, then consider if you really need it or not. Unless, of course, it's like party planning here and there haven't been too many big parties. But other than that, everything should be put in question whether or not you really need it or not. And in general, unless you are a true minimalist, I find that most people have like a third more possessions, sometimes even double the possessions that they need. There's just really too much stuff generally in our homes, and the too much stuff is the main obstacle between us and easy organization. And there's really only two ways to solve this obstacle. One way is to get rid of the stuff, and the second way is to get a bigger house, which most people are not in a position to do. And most people are not going to put on an addition in their home just because their kid got a bunch of extra gifts for a birthday. So as stuff is constantly coming into our homes, we kind of want to keep the equilibrium of the stuff in our homes and have a constant flow out of our home as well. And so the only way is to kind of ruthlessly declutter. So very often I tell my clients the way to do this is to set a timer for, let's say, 20 minutes and declutter the area. And you just make quick decisions. Is this garbage? Is this donate? Is this keep? If keep, where are we keeping it? And it's in the beginning hard, but the more you do it, your kind of muscle, your decision-making muscles get stronger and stronger, and this process gets easier. And the cool thing about this is that as you become more decisive with your things, this decision-making gets extrapolated to many other areas of your life, like, you get more decisive picking things from menu or just bigger life decision. It's a decision-making muscle that really trickles down to all areas of people's lives, and it's super cool to watch. So the other thing I want to mention about organizing is that sometimes people ask me a lot of questions about bins, and while bins are fun and interesting, and they sometimes tend to be expensive too, but the main things to keep in mind is bins are just they're not really the important thing. It's really the process that's the most important. And the one other thing about the bins and the containers is that I would never have you buy any container unless you know how and where you're going to use it, because I've seen the containers themselves become part of the clutter in the home. So, so obviously the less stuff we have, the easier it is to clean up. And a lot of times tell our kids to go clean up, and they, like I said, they don't even know where to begin or, how to start. Few kids are natural at this, so you have to do it with them a few times, and you can make it fun and a positive experience. And again, like I said, the goal is not to have no toys out. That's not a realistic goal. The goal is that you could put them away when you're done playing with them and before you get other things out. And my theory with kids is the less toys, like the better they focus on their toys and the better they play. Like a few times when we moved and we packed up all the toys and we left just a few things, they played so much better with fewer things. And the other suggestion about toys is if you do have a lot of toys, but they're like really nice and you're not ready to donate the excess, what you can do is hide some of them, take them out of circulation, put them in bins that are not clear, solid bins, so they don't get discovered as easily, and put them somewhere or hide, like in your basement, in your attic, somewhere in a high shelf, and just for 6 months, take them out of circulation. And eventually, I like getting them, when you put them back into circulation, I like doing that on a fast day because that's when I need the kids to be the most occupied happily. And then you take some other toys away, and that's how you can rotate toys to kind of minimize the amount of stuff available to them, and that makes cleanup so much easier. So the other awesome thing, obviously, that happens when you decrease the amount of toys, you decrease the amount of like visual clutter as you walk into their playroom, into their room, into your living room. The visual clutter is very like overwhelming. It's a source of stress to the system. And by having less of that, you can reduce like the chaos that you see. So you just become calmer and you become a calmer mom, which is a gift that you can give to your kids. Another practical tip is if you have a home that has more than one level, if you notice, sometimes when you sleep, the toys and things get to the wrong level on their own at night. Or I guess the kids help with this too. And one way to deal with that is you can have, like I recommend a bin at the bottom and top of each staircase. And as you're doing that declutter session and you find things that need to go to the other level, instead of just going there and getting sidetracked, just put it in the bin. And, you know, as you go around and live your normal life, then next time you actually need to go upstairs, you'll grab a couple of things and put them in their place. So the bin system is just a cool, convenient thing. The next thing I want to address is chores and kids helping. Initially, when I started preparing this talk, nobody had help in the house, no cleaning ladies, no babysitters. I know a lot of people are starting to get those people back in. So I wasn't sure if I should talk about this part, but I decided to leave it in. I personally still haven't had any help. And I know there are people like that out there. And also, this summer is not a typical summer. Everybody could use all the help they can get. So I want to talk a little bit about chores for the kids. Now, when we talk about chores, there's kind of two aspects of it. The long term, like we want our kids to have skills, how to, in case they're ever adults stuck in a pandemic, that they could take care of their house, just life skills, right? And the second part is the short term, like we just need things done right now, yesterday. So for the long term, I wanted to share a story. I have a neighbor who I had over for Shabbos, and this neighbor has many, many children. And they're amazing, super helpful. They brought this gorgeous dessert that they made. They were helping clean the house afterwards. They were just, in general, I know they're super helpful. And I asked this mom, what's your secret to have kids, to having kids that help this much? And she said, the secret is to let them help you before it's convenient or actually helpful. Like when you're cooking and they want to help, you let them help, even though it's so much easier to get it done on your own without their help, or with cleaning, or with anything. So if you get them involved early on when it's still annoying, and then they learn to be really helpful, and you can completely outsource it to them later. And kids in general are capable of so much more than we realize. I remember the first time I Googled a chore chart by age, or what age are kids capable of doing different things. I was blown away by how much, by how little kids can do so much already. So it's helpful to Google that for yourself and just to know that as approximate, capability. And, but then there's the short term, right? Something bothers you right now, and that really somebody else, maybe a spouse, maybe kid, it's really their job, but right in the moment, it's affecting your focus and your function. So don't be resentful and be the smarter and be upset. Just if you need it done for your own menuchas hanefesh, just do it. Think of it as this is your way of blessing your home, of bringing the bracha into your home. It's chesed. The way I'm thinking right now is there's kind of almost a storm out in the world, and we're in this teva, and I'm taking care of the animals. that's something that helps me do the things around my house now. And of course, by letting your kids help and pitch in, you're giving them, like I said, life skills that they'll have forever. So now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about time management. Time is a funny thing. It's an equalizer. We all get the same 24 hours, and some people just seem to get so much done with that 24 hours, and we feel there's also a lot of guilt around it because we always feel like we're not getting this much done. So I want to offer you some tips and tricks, because we can all agree that the summer is not a typical summer, and we could use all the extra time that we can get. And the other thing about time I want to mention is that kids are obviously always watching us, and they will see how we use our time, and it's kind of for them as well. So the first thing I like to say about time is to figure out what season of life you're in. A very dear friend of mine and my mentor, Hadassah Goodman, once told me something. She lives in Lakewood now. She used to live in Chicago. A lot of you probably know her. But she told me a very amazing thing. She said, think of it like this. The first 20 years are for yourself, the second 20 years for your family, and the third 20 years for your community. So life is never neat packages like that. But it's just an approximation, and it takes away some of the guilt. Like if you have little kids, then maybe community work that takes you out of the house may not be the right season for you to do that in. If you have a newborn, then like your first priority is just to take care of your newborn and yourself, and everything else goes down in priority. It just takes away the guilt and gives you direction. And knowing what season you're in, like I said, eliminates some of that guilt. And our current season is, we're going through a pandemic, a potential civil revolution. We're doing like Camp Mommy without cleaning help or other help while trying to work. This is a crazy season, and it's temporary. So just be gentle with yourself, and remember that this season may not be the season to do certain things, and that's okay. This too shall pass. The next thing I want to talk about, I feel so passionate about, is making the game plan for yourself the night before. Kind of just brain dumping all the things for tomorrow, first of all, helps you sleep so much better, and kind of you wake up with a plan. Or if you don't have time, you didn't do this the night before, having it in the morning while you drink your coffee is also great. And the way I structure the day is I call this divide and conquer. And I feel so passionate about it. I even created a product around this concept. You don't need my product. You can just do this on a piece of paper, but if you want to check it out as a resource, you can see it on my website, letitgoconsulting.com. It's there. It's the productivity notepad. But you could really, like I said, you don't need to spend any money. You can do this on a piece of paper, but the idea is to divide your day into categories of types of things that you do. So errands are together. Makes sense. You're out of the house anyway. You can get all those things done together. Home tasks are together. That's things that you need to do in the home. And it's usually things that you don't need to have your brain on. Like you could be folding laundry or washing dishes and be schmoozing with a kid and spending quality time still. That's home tasks together. Like laundry, dinner, organizing even. The next thing is calls, texts. You have a quiet moment. You see, these are the people I need to reach out or contact today. So you use that quiet time to do that. The next thing is online tasks. I group those together because we know how distracting online things can be and we can get sidetracked. And the other thing that I kind of start out with before all these categories are what I call the 3 priorities. Kind of the big things that if you got done today, and just do 3. If you do more than 3, you'll get overwhelmed. The 3 things that if you got them done, you'd feel super accomplished about yourself at the end of the day. So that's the plan for the day. And let me just take another sip of water. And the next thing I want to address is something that is called the 1-minute rule. It's a term coined, it has nothing to do with food falling on the floor. It's a term coined by Gretchen Rubin, who is a researcher in the field of happiness and an author. And she wrote a book that I love called Outer Order, Inner Calm. And it's a simple idea. It's if a task will take you a minute or less to complete, do it as soon as you realize it needs to be done. Like open that letter and toss it, wash that dish that you just used, Make your bed right when you get up. Answer that email if it's like a short one-liner. Just as tasks present to you, get them out of the way. And eventually you'll run out of those little tasks and you'll move on to the bigger things. But kind of the idea is don't put the little tasks on your to-do list. Just not get them knocked off. And the next thing I want to talk about is it's called Eat the Biggest Frog First. It comes from a famous quote by Mark Twain, and he said like this: if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. The concept is that about 80% of your stress comes from 20% of your tasks. Like there's these tasks that are like weighing over you. And also the concept that no matter how much time we have, the task always fill the time. Like think of Shabbos starting at 4 o'clock or at 8 o'clock. We're always rushing around right before anyway. So this idea that if there's something big like needs to get done in that day that you're dreading, for some people it's a phone call or a form to fill out, or maybe for some people it's workout, just get it done, set a timer for 20 minutes and just get it done first thing in the morning, and the rest of the day won't be weighing on you and you'll just feel amazing. The next thing with time is that just being also realistic about how long tasks take. When I work with my clients, we a lot of times do this thing where we kind of keep a diary for a day or two, where we write down almost everything that we do and how much time it took. It's kind of like if you've ever gone to a nutritionist and they've asked you to keep a food diary. So you do this with your time, and it gives you so much clarity. You find pockets of time that you didn't know existed. And it also just lets you kind of be realistic about how long this carpool to Beis Yaakov takes. Or if you think makeup takes 2 minutes, but if you time yourself, perhaps it's like a 7-minute task. You know, just gives you clarity about what you can fit in any amount of time. So that's that. The next thing I want to talk about is menu planning. It's a huge time-saving tool, and it's also like a huge sanity tool for us. I had an initial kind of resistance and reluctance to it because I love organizing, but I don't love cooking. So menu planning to me almost felt like not only do I have to cook, but I have to like plan about what I cook. It's like double the yuck, you know? But once I started doing it, I realized all the benefits. First of all, you save a ton of money because you're not running out to the store. And nowadays, anyway, running out to a store is not such an easy thing. Like I personally haven't even gone into stores since mid-March. I do Instacart and whatnot. So it nowadays, for sure, it helps to know what you're making so you can have the ingredients on hand. And it just saves you time because you are kind of can prep and you can pull things out of the freezer, and it just brings this stress level when everybody's like hungry and tired around dinner time down because there's like a plan. And also kids really love knowing what's for dinner early in the day. It's a funny thing. And the other thing that used to hold me back from menu planning is I used to think that it's a Sunday activity. I for some reason thought that. But Sunday was such a busy family day. I would like, as I'm falling asleep on a Sunday night, when I didn't get to it, I would think like, okay, I blew it. I guess no menu planning this week. But then I realized that you could menu plan like any day really, and you could do it same time as you plan for Shabbos, like on a Wednesday, Thursday, when you're planning your Shabbos and your shopping list. You can also plan all the meals till like the next, Wednesday, Thursday. So you can menu plan Shabbos and the weekday at the same time. And it was like an aha moment for me. So I am a firm believer that this is just a great tool in your arsenal. And then no talk about time management, I feel, is complete without addressing the biggest time stealer of all, which is our phone. Don't get me wrong, I love technology. I have an IT undergraduate degree. I use social media extensively to market my business. I love technology and all the things that it offers. But the one thing I don't like technology for, one, is lists, to-do lists. I believe that the phones, because they're so distracting, I recommend using paper for to-do lists. And two, I want to talk a little bit about how we can mitigate how distracted our phones make us. So kind of in particular, if you have any kind of social media on your phone, and by the way, WhatsApp is also social media, you own it to yourself to create some boundaries so it doesn't interfere with your sleep and it doesn't control you. I just want to make sure I tell you all the things. I kind of tend to view the phone as dessert and not the main course. There were 2 weeks ago, there was a talk by Madrigos also on teen phone usage, and it's excellent. I highly recommend it. So I don't want to say any, I listened to it and I don't want to repeat any of the things that were said. It was great, but I do want to address one aspect as it relates to this. It's not just the teens that need the boundaries, it's us, the parents, as well. And it's not only the content that we're concerned about, but the time, the amount of time that we spend on it at the expense of other things like sleep or quality time with people in your life. And also, we can't expect our children to do something that we're not doing, like I said, in Ruknius or in Gashmias. So that's another thing to consider. And they're watching us, how we use our phones. So everything I'm going to tell you, the few tools, is going to be related to iPhones because that's what I personally use. And I also hear that a lot of people, if they ever give their kids devices, they switch to iPhones over Androids because the controls are a little bit better from what I hear. But again, I'm not telling anybody not to use the phone. I think it's too late for a lot of people, myself included. And there's so many positives, especially during this pandemic. The connectivity, the ease of connectivity has been great. The navigation is amazing. The sitter, the notes, the fact that it has a compass and I can find which way to say mincha if I'm not like in a familiar location. There's so much good, right? So I'm not telling you not to use it, but I think that we own it to ourselves to learn how to use it in a better, safer way. We can't pretend that there's not a danger. So I'm gonna now go over some technical specific things. It's hard to do it in this format. I usually do one-on-one, so anybody can reach out to me afterwards if they want any help with this, but I'm gonna go over some tools that are built into the phone. So like the first part is the reality check. To go into your settings and to go into your screen time and look at the average amount of hours you're using that phone. And do this when you're sitting down, because if you've never checked, you'll be shocked. Most people are just shocked by how high that number is, but don't give up hope. All is not lost. There is something you can do about it. And don't think that it's like this, that number is so high because you don't have self-control. You do have self-control. It's just that the makers of this worked really hard to make it super addictive. They worked hard and they got paid a lot of money to make it a certain way. So it's not you, it's them. But you do want to mitigate some of the risks. And thankfully, they did build up in some tools into the phone to help you with this. So the next thing, and maybe you're taking notes, is I recommend you do is first figure out how much sleep you need to make sure that that's not cutting into that sleep time, because I think sleep is superpower, and I can give a separate talk on sleep, but I'm not going to do that tonight. So figure out how much sleep you need, and then figure out what time you need to wake up, and then work back from that, what time you need lights out. And whatever that lights out hour is, subtract an hour from that, and you don't want to be using your technology for an hour before that. It's better to read in bed instead of using the technology. You sleep so much better. And so in the phone, the things that you want to look at then is in settings, there's something called screen time. So, and what that does is it basically makes your phone boring after a certain hour. And that hour should be an hour before whatever your lights out is. It makes any fun apps that are drawing you to your phone, like, stop working. So that's called screen time. And then there's another section there that's called always allowed. And you basically want to allow the boring stuff, like your notes or the calendar or the calculator. You want to, have that be there, but you just want to shut down any social media. The other thing you could do is right in there, there's something called app limits. So when you're checking your, and I'm so sorry about how technical this is getting, but I just think it's super useful to have the tools. But when you find out your total time on your device, it'll show you how much of it is in what area, like social media, for example. And you can take an app that on which you're spending a lot of time and have a limit on just on that app. Like, for example, Instagram could be like that. And you can say you can't, Instagram will stop working after an hour each day, after an hour of use. So that's another way where you can kind of self-control, set controls for yourself. And what some of my clients do is they actually, because you can override it, but they actually give the password to somebody else in their home, like a spouse, to make it more foolproof. So you can use these features to your advantage to control your own phone time and the phone time usage of your kids. I do believe it's okay to use technology to survive a pandemic. It's right now is not like a normal situation. And I think as long as it's filtered and as long as it has like balanced with in-person parent attention and outdoor playtime, I think it's a temporary situation. And the important thing is if it's helping you have a more positive atmosphere in the home, my personal opinion is that it's okay. I'm checking to see how we're on time. We're okay. So with this, I want to wind down. One huge gift that you can give to yourself during this time is the gift of letting go. When creating my company, Let It Go Consulting, I view this letting go as twofold. Letting go of expectations of what you think life should have been like for you in general and during this season, and embracing and learning to love what is, and letting go of the extra physical clutter in your life that's weighing you down. By letting go of the physical stuff in our space and emotional baggage in our heart, we're making room for what really matters, which is having a positive atmosphere in home and being at peace with what Hashem has given us, especially during this season. And having the calmness and being at peace with ourselves and our space will in turn make us the kind of parents that our kids crave and need. One last point. Toward the beginning of quarantine, I listened to a Zoom talk by Rabbi Akiva Tatz of London, England. And he was speaking both as a physician, he's a doctor and a rabbi, and he was answering questions. It was a question answer session. And one participant asked him about his opinion of like the true origins of Corona. Was it a man-made? Was it in a lab? Like, where did it really come from? And Rabbi Tatz said that for our purposes, it really doesn't matter. Hashem never gives you any accidental side effects. You're having the exact Corona experience that you're meant to have, and that's custom tailored for you and your family. And that gave me so much chizuk. We see a lot of signs on different businesses that say, we're in this together. We are, and we're not. We're in the same ocean during this storm, but we are in our own different boats, and our boats are different inside. And each boat is custom tailored for you by Hashem. May Hashem give us the clarity to be the kind of parents that we need to be during this unprecedented time, and when we see the Geula B'mehera B'yameinu.
Thank you, Elisheva. That was absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that, and I feel like I just gained so many tools, spiritually and physically, emotionally, like on every single level. Thank you.
Great.
We have one question here from the audience. How do you motivate your clients to get going with decluttering? What's the first step? How do you get them to start?
Okay. So for that person, the decluttering is wrong, right? It's the thing that's like they know that they probably should do, but they're, something is holding them back. I think the only way to start is to literally say, I'm not going to do this whole garage or this whole basement. All I'm going to do today is I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes, and whatever, when the timer's over, I'm done. Sometimes you get going and you love it and you just keep going, but the only way is to just say to yourself, I'm just going to do this little bit, not the entire mess.
Okay, now we have more questions coming in and comments here. So somebody wants to know, okay, what about when our spouse is a mess?
Oh, I love this question so much because I literally get this question all the time. And it's so easy when things are not in order to focus on what the other person isn't doing and what needs to be done. And what I always tell my clients is we'll get to him when everything that's in your domain and like the household domain is done, then we'll worry about the husband. And a lot of times by the time he sees what the house starts looking like and how happy you are and how like nice your side of the closet looks, he's like, what want to be doing my side? You know, but just don't worry. Always focus on yourself. And if you're like have this urge to organize somebody else, it usually means that you yourself need to do this to your own stuff first.
I like that answer. Especially as a therapist, I think that's very good.
Right. Why is not just organizing. You can't change anybody but yourself.
Okay. So I think that's it. I don't see any more questions now. Thank you so much. That was really great.
Anybody can reach out to me privately with any questions.
Please feel free, everyone, to join us next week, same time, same place. We're going to have Sunny Levy speaking about staying healthy in mind and body. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.